So I am very well aware that I have a bright cityscape behind me, but that doesn't matter because today we're here to talk about The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Now, as we get into it, written in the New Thought tradition, her message is simple yet transformative. We receive back what we put into the world through our actions, energies, and attitudes. Negativity and pessimism are returned in kind, but by switching the script in favor of positive attitudes and affirmations, we are able to manifest success and joy in everything we do. Now, the whole reason I'm making videos and stuff like this because I'm 25. I am in pursuit of answers in life. I've started a 7-figure business. I live in my dream apartment. I lost $80,000 in my first business. I went through one of the darkest seasons of my life and I made it all the way to this point, and I'm just trying to understand life. What is the meaning behind all of this? Where do we actually find fulfillment and joy and love and purpose? And as I dive deeper into that need to understand and learn and grow, I'm realizing it's the simple things. It has nothing to do with the achievement. It has nothing to do with the dollar. It has nothing to do with the status or the clout or the fame. It has to do with your ability to be here now, 10 toes down, dealing with the truth that life has to offer us, that this is a finite experience, that it's not going to be about the success and the results and the status at the end of the life. It's going to be about the relationships we cultivated, the experiences we've had, and our ability to love, learn, grow. So let's talk about the game. Most people consider life a battle, but it is not a battle. It is a game. It is a game, however, which cannot be played successfully without the knowledge of spiritual law. And the Old and the New Testaments give the rules of the game with wonderful clearness. Jesus Christ taught that it was a great game of giving and receiving. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. This means that whatever man sends out into the word or deed will return him. What he gives, he will receive. So I think this is a big thing to consider and to look into when it comes to just observing our life and the things we want. Because it really comes down to our ability to be here now, to look at the things we've done, take responsibility for our actions in the first place, to make peace with the things that we are not happy with, which in turn integrates the shadow, and then to usher in a new age with open arms, to walk with a little more love, a little more humility, a little more breath of fresh air, be that positive face on the street, hold that door open for that stranger, have that conversation with the cashier, because that's what you give to the world. That's the energy you're giving, because how you treat others is how you treat yourself. And that is how we move into a higher state of awareness, that there is a oneness, there is an interconnectedness to life. And that when we can start to live by those rules and understand that spiritual game, life starts to turn in our favor. But like I was saying earlier, I really think it's about simplicity. It's not about like taking on this burden of responsibility, of finances, of pressure on ourselves. Yesterday I was thinking about, hey, I want to cultivate relationships with the people that have been here with me from the beginning so I can share every season of life. So I can be at their weddings and be fully present and love them and be like, look at how far we've come. We used to be 10-year-olds sitting in each other's house, running around, playing games, and I don't want to look back on a season of my life and have been so lost in the hustle and bustle America pushes down our throats that I missed the important nature of love and connection. Florence says, nothing stands between man and his highest ideals and every desire of his heart but doubt and fear. Why are ye fearful, O ye of little faith? So we can see what we must substitute faith for fear is only inverted faith. It is faith in evil instead of good. Now, this is something to bring up because it's all about perspective. It's all about our ability to deal with the wave that we ride every day. I saw a story post by Nero, a very prominent spiritual creator, and he's saying, frequency needs to be understood or it's dangerous, because it's not about being a high frequency person. It's about the fact that a high frequency person can deal with the ups and downs. It's about that person's ability to deal with the lows just as much of the highs. So that's something to take into account that we talk about faith versus fear. In 2020, one of my family members almost committed suicide. And there's been a lot of mental health issues kind of transpiring, but God bless his soul because he has gotten so much better. And one of the main things we talked about in our household was faith versus fear, or faith over fear. That despite what life throws our way, despite the curveballs that come, we have one choice. It is our perception, it is our perspective, it is our level of awareness. And that's what Florence is talking about, that it's about our ability to have faith, that in the presence of fear, we choose faith. We have trust in the harmony that is the divine creation. We have trust in God. We have trust in ourselves. We just recognize that this is an essential part of the journey, that the lessons you learn at the bottom half serve you at the top. And ideally, the goal at the end is to become detached, to have a heart full of love, a mind that is detached to the flow of thoughts, and just be here now. And I think one of the quickest ways to get off of this pendulum and to get off of this roller coaster that a lot of us may experience is to simplify our life. To not want something more, to not take on more burden, to not take on more stress, but to actually make peace with what we do have, to find gratitude for the relationships we have, how far we've come. That was a big thing on my journey as I overcame $80,000 of debt, rebuilding an entire business. I went on a 40, 50 pound weight loss journey. I really turned my life around, and it was all about the small wins behind me that I found gratitude for instead of looking at the mountain I had to climb in front of me. And the more you do that, it's like you enter this flow state where your mind just shuts off and you're in harmony with everything. You're trusting, you have faith, you're doing the thing. So it's not about chasing something outside of ourselves, because we realize that the thing we actually wanted exists here now. Sorry if you see me playing with my tank top, it's because I got a mic right here and it's just dropping it down, gotta keep it PG. But let's dive into the law of prosperity and kind of what she talks about when it comes down to welcoming this abundance into our life and ushering in a new era where we do have more faith, where we do have a grander connection to things that are providing us abundance. One of the greatest messages given to the race through the scriptures is that God is man's supply, and that man can release through his spoken word all that belongs to him by divine right. He must, however, have a perfect faith in his spoken word. Isaiah said, "My word shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish that whereunto it is sent." We know now that words and thoughts are a tremendous vibratory force ever molding man's body and affairs. A woman came to me in great distress and said she has to be sued on the 15th of the month for $3,000. She knew no way of getting the money and was in despair. I told her God was her supply and that there is a supply for every demand. She goes on to talk about how if she came into perfect faith, she would get what she want. And then this person ended up receiving a call from like her uncle or something and getting money. To tie into another book I read called Infinite Potential, I think it comes down to our fact to sit in the pocket, which is the present moment, and to not only be present there, but to channel the intention and the frequency of what we want. Because being unconscious means you're creating a reality with lack of awareness of how these universal laws are playing out through you, right? I've had a tough last week or two, I can't lie. And I was falling into subconscious patterns, eating unhealthy, doing the bare minimum at the gym, feeling just burdened by work. And that was forcing me into a lower frequency. And I was starting to do unconscious things. I was starting to place blame on the external world. So I went from like a 4D place to a 3D place. A 4D place is where you can start to reprogram your unconscious mind, reprogram that subconscious, and start to change how you think and how you impact the world with just these vibratory forces. And a 5D state is like your heart consciousness. That's why the 5, when you put the 5 back to back, it's like the shape of the Sacred Heart. Just symbolism, synchronicities, keep an eye out for them. That's a big thing about my spiritual awakening, was I started to see a lot of angel numbers. And it was like a weird amount. And I wasn't paying attention to the numbers. The more I looked into the message, the more confused I got. But as soon as I started to let go and be like, you know what? I'm comfortable here. I'm not afraid of this level of awareness. It started to show me more. And I started to climb. And I started to be able to take on more knowledge and more awareness. Because I wasn't afraid, because I was welcoming, because I had acceptance for what God and the universe was showing me. But she moves into chapter 2 and she talks about the power of the word. By the words thou shalt be justified, and by the words thou shalt be condemned. So, when you come from a place of faith, you have confidence in your utmost ability for prosperity. Your words are the conviction that define the outcome. So you're going to justify that higher level of things you want for yourself, or you're going to be condemned based on kind of what you put out into the universe, the confidence and conviction you have behind it. I found that one of the most inauthentic things you can do is talk yourself up like someone you're not. That's neglecting kind of facing your reality, and I think that's something where a lot of people get stumbled up and start to make mistakes, is they think it's about faking it till you make it. It is not about that. I think it's about being realistic with where you're at, making peace with your demons, making peace with your shadow, looking in the mirror and not being afraid that, hey, maybe I smoked a little too much, maybe I drank a little too much, maybe I had too much of a sex addiction at one point, and really accepting that version of yourself, because that version of yourself needs love too. I think one of the biggest lessons I learned is that even the devil deserves love. Or that metaphorical concept, right? Because I don't really think it's about the external thing. I really think it's about the internal one. The internal battle we have between our highest self and our lowest self. Our lowest self is doing these things because it just wants some love. It just wants some support. It just wants to be seen. And the ego is just trying to justify its place in the world. And I think when you start to realize that, hey, that's not me, those are traits and qualities of a survival mechanism, you can start to make peace with it, and you can start to ascend, you can start to welcome in a new era of awareness and really make room for your highest self to step in and not only love your lowest self, but spread your wings and ascend into who you know you're destined to be. She says, a person knowing the power of the word becomes very careful of his conversation. He has only to watch the reaction of his words to know that they do not return void. Through his spoken word, man is continually making laws for himself. So it's the idea that whatever you put out is coming back. I need to be very careful. I'm a 3 life path. If you couldn't tell already, I got the mouthpiece on me. I'm all about communication. And I think the biggest thing I found that when it comes to communication with yourself and with others, it's the intention you put behind it, the vibratory force. Not necessarily what you say, but the why. Because you're unconscious, what you're feeling, the real intention you have that you may not show the world, the universe knows. Everything's energy. So you're emitting that frequency whether people are aware of it or not. So just know that you cannot get away with anything. As much as you think you're being sly and you're playing the game and you're messing with people that don't see your game because you're smarter than them, nah. The universe knows all. God knows all. You cannot lie. You cannot steal. You cannot cheat. Sin will always be punished because what you put out, you get back. Because I could totally talk someone up, pretend I have their best interest in mind, but really have some selfish intention where I'm screwing them out of something. And I think that's the last thing you want. Because if you really think about it, if you go back and watch some of my long form videos and I really just break down that polarity, there's a perfect balance. There's a perfect harmony. So just play the game the right way the first time. Use the power of the word for good intention, and then you're going to be bestowed upon and justified of that outcome. If you are afraid, you are giving into a belief in 2 powers, TWO, good and evil instead of one. As God is absolute, there can be no opposing power unless man makes the false of evil for himself. This is something to pay attention to, because whether you dive into some spiritual text or not, there's something called sacred numerology. And it says to speak of the one means that you do not understand the concept of the one, because the one is the all. It is entirety. That's what God is. God is everything. God is not something outside of us. And I ironically think if you're a broken person, sure as hell I am, you actually get to know God a little bit better, because the two came so God could know the one. That's why we have yin and yang. That's why we have duality. That's why we have the black and the white. So there is a mirror for the absolute to understand, to become aware of itself. Because I got a comment on one of my YouTube videos, and whoever this person was really put it in perspective for me, was that we had the tree of knowledge, tree of good and evil, to learn about free will, to learn that, hey, we're not forced to make these choices, that evil teaches us how to make good choices and to overcome versions of ourselves we think are permanent, we think are set in stone, which is actually an evolutionary process. It's survival of the fittest. I believe that evolution isn't a physical game now, because the physical world is deteriorating to some degree. We have all this talk about climate change, this and that. I don't really care what you believe, but we are definitely expending resources at a rate that is unhealthy. So how is there time for the physical body to evolve, the earth to evolve, when it's always under attack? That's why it's a race and it's a spiritual game. That's why the social media and the big tech companies are coming after your awareness. They have artificial intelligence that is trained on every decision you have made on its app, on your phone, on your platform, which is why if you've ever seen the social media documentary, I forget what it's called, I'm so sorry. You have to check it out. I'll look for it. I could put a link in the bio. They have these profiles of us, these digital profiles that know our patterns and our decision making better than us, which is how they can redirect us, how they know when we're going to purchase, how they can put things in front of us and get us to consume and stay on their app and stay on this. They're fighting for every last second we have, so that's something to pay attention to. That was a little bit of a tangent, but that's just a really important conversation, because your awareness is everything. It's where you learn, it's where you grow, it's where you evolve. And if you're having propaganda, first of all, fuck politics, fuck social media. All this stuff is meant to be for the grander good of a democracy, for the grander good of people, but it is so not. It's so far gone. It is a mono type of game right now. So that's why the real awakening is being able to work on yourself. Because like Gandhi says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And yesterday I had a radically transparent conversation with someone that is staying with me. And I said, hey, I'm sorry for placing blame on the external world, because I know it's an internal game. I know that there's something wrong with my mind right now, or my habits, or my judgments of the things I'm doing that is preventing me from growing, that is preventing me from coming back to a place of bliss, of peace, of harmony. And I think it's important to side with the side of that absolute power, of that abundance, of that harmony, of God, of the universe. Because as soon as we look externally, we place blame, which creates that false evil. Then she goes on to say, someone has said that courage contains genius and magic. Face a situation fearlessly, and there is no situation to face. It falls away to its own weight. The explanation is that fear attracted the ladder on the woman's pathway and fearlessness removed it. All right, we skipped a little bit. She probably had a story right here. Moral of the story: thus the invisible forces are ever working for man, who is always pulling the strings himself, though he does not know it, unconscious or conscious. Owing to the vibratory powers of words, Whatever man voices, he begins to attract. People who continuously speak of disease invariably attract it. I think this is why meditation, and in my family we say cleaning up your side of the street, is so important. Or a term I coined for myself is leaving it all in the arena, which leaves room for God to step in and do the thing. So if I have fitness goals and I have work goals and I put those things down and I don't do them, I'm a scammer. I am scamming myself out of my own word. How are you supposed to have anything from yourself if you don't respect yourself? If you don't operate in your own interest of your highest good? Because guess what? You are the universe. You embody the traits of creation itself. So technically, you're throwing up a big middle finger to the universe by not rising to your word, to rising what's good for you, to doing what's best for you. And I think that's a big mistake where people kind of mess up and are unable to manifest what they want, is by not having that initial self-respect. Because if you have fitness goals and you want to manifest something for yourself, but you're going to say yes to going out on a Friday, you're going to say yes to that margarita, yes to that Mexican food, yes to that burger, you're screwed. You got to play those initial first principles first before you move into this realm where you have control over reality, where you're in ultimate power of conscious creation. And I think you have to earn those levels of self-respect first to climb. What man says of others will be said of him, and what he wishes for another, he is wishing for himself. So this is like what I was talking about earlier, that you have to walk through life with humility and love for everyone you come across. Because we're all going through the same thing, microcosm to the macrocosm. We're all battling a little bit of insanity. We're all battling crazy political times. We're all battling corruption. We're all battling social media, fighting for our conscious mind and our soul. So have a little more grace. I think take pressure off of yourself. Don't be so worried about this individualized experience. Have a little bit of love, have a little bit of grace. She says the soul is the subconscious mind and it must be saved from wrong thinking. This means that the subconscious mind or soul must be restored with the right ideas. And the mystical marriage is the marriage of the soul and the spirit, or the subconscious and superconscious mind. They must be one. When the subconscious is flooded with perfect ideas of the superconscious, God and man are one. I and the Father are one, to refer back to biblical texts. That is, he is one with the realm of perfect ideas. He is the man made in God's likeness and image, imagination, and is given power and dominion over all created things, his mind, body, and affairs. And I can confirm a place like this exists. I found my way there a few times, but for fleeting moments. And I think the best thing in order to kind of merge the subconscious mind with the superconscious mind is to really focus on gratitude and to really focus on presence. Because as soon as you can find the stillness, you're not going to find the anxiety or fear of the present moment. You're going to be confident in what is. You're not going to be lacking, right? So you're starting to program the subconscious mind for that abundance, to really be grateful for what you do have, because life itself is the gift. I think one of the biggest things I realized was, if I look back on my life and realize that I sold my soul for $1, or living in a high-rise building and was not able to tell the people in my family I loved them, to have the confidence to go up to a beautiful girl on the street, to hold the door open for a stranger, to buy lunch for a homeless person, how the fuck can I say I know how to live? When I was so selfish, I made it about these material things to maybe, hopefully, one day justify my existence to the world. And that's my greatest fear. My greatest fear is looking back on my one life and realizing I sold it in service of a false god or a fake reality that I thought would make me happy. And I just want to say thank you for those of you that listen, because to some degree this is a diary of mine. It is a journal where I can kind of sit here and filter through my thoughts and through a lens of thinking about the world. And as much as I'm doing this in service and hoping that you at home get some type of benefit from this, it's really for me to connect with myself a little deeper, connect with you guys because of the oneness and interconnectedness of this experience. So if this ever ends up going somewhere, just know it's all about the connection for me. It's about my ability to look you in the eyes and have a conversation, understand a little bit more about your story. Just love a little more while I'm here. Any inharmony on the external indicates there is mental inharmony. As the within, so the without. The microcosm to the macrocosm, as above, so below. Man's only enemies are within himself, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. This is why I came out to the conversation with my friend yesterday and saying I take full responsibility for the fact that I created foes in my own household. That I wasn't doing the things for myself that allowed these thoughts to creep in, that judgment, that fear, that anxiety. I was living in inverted faith. And one of the quickest ways to get out of that is to set fucking boundaries. If someone's getting on your nerves, tell them in the nicest way, hey, I can't do this. This is how it needs to go if you want the best version of me to show up. If things are irritating you on the external world, look within. But also don't take that full responsibility. Realize that there are some things you may need to cut off because they are unhealthy sources and they are like poisoning the water well. That's what I mean by boundaries as well, but it's also going to be boundaries for yourself. Hey, maybe I shouldn't be spending time with that person, eating that food, drinking that, smoking that, because that impacts my ability to think and impacts the temple of God. So that's a conversation for another time. But one of the best pieces of advice I can give is be sober. Learn to love this life as it is, and you just become this magnetic source of life itself. The enlightened man, therefore, endeavors to perfect himself upon his neighbor. His work is with himself, to send out goodwill and blessing to every man, and the marvelous thing is that if one blesses a man, he has no power to harm him. Bless him all day, and be willing not to sell your machine if it isn't the divine idea. Goodwill produces a great aura of protection about the one who sends it, and no weapon that is formed against him shall prosper. In other words, love and goodwill destroy the enemies within oneself. Therefore, one has no enemies on the external. That's kind of what I mean by walk around with that humility, walk around with that grace. Bestow love and blessings upon everyone you come across. It doesn't have to be in a corny, woo type of way. I think putting everyone else first shows this magnetic aura of self-confidence that you don't need to make everything about you to feel justified in your experience, to feel like you're better than someone, which is really just an egoic frame of mind. I'm telling you that feeling of the need for validation, which is why we have these addictions, which is why we have these subconscious habits, these karmic loops, is because we feel the need to be validated. We need the potentially feel loved when we can really give that love to ourselves. In college, I was cheated on, and that crushed me. I developed a weed addiction. I was drinking way too much, partying way too much. I went $80,000 in debt. I was eating like shit, and just in this full downward spiral. So I forgived her. I was not going to allow someone to have that power over me. And not only that, but I forgive myself. I would go feel that pain I felt and be like, it was okay. That was for your own good. Learn to love those darkest parts of yourself. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid of them, because then you're missing out on half the experience. Because that rejection and that judgment keeps you in a polar state of mind, and you're not going to be able to grow, to evolve. So just love that dark version of yourself that you're afraid to show the world. The Chinese say that water is the most powerful element because it is perfectly non-resistant. It can wear away a rock and sweep all before it. Jesus Christ said, "Resist not evil, for he know in reality there is no evil. Therefore nothing to resist." Evil has come of man's vain imagination or a belief in two powers, good and evil, the duality of man. That's why in the first two videos I made, the first two long forms on the whiteboard, I talk about the duality of man. I talk about the fact that we are on this polar pendulum and that it's nothing to judge, it's nothing to be afraid of. Out of our own vain imagination, it is nothing to fuel the fire with. It's something to look at, become aware of, and realize that, hey, we're going to ride those waves regardless. It's about my ability to remain non-resistant on the highs, non-resistant on the lows. There is an old legend that Adam and Eve ate of Maya, the tree of evolution, and saw two powers instead of one power, God. Therefore, evil is a false law man has made for himself through psychoma or soul sleep. Soul sleep means that man's soul has been hypnotized by the race belief of sin, sickness, and death, which is carnal or mortal thought, and his affairs have outpictured his illusions. That's deep. That is pretty fucking crazy. Because we know we're mortal, those fears and those anxieties are going to manifest themselves in our spiritual experiences. So as Adam and Eve ate from Maya, the tree of illusion, and saw two powers instead of one power, God, this was something I saw actually in my spiritual awakening, or my altered states of consciousness. Was God and the devil being one being? Because we need good to understand bad. We need loss to understand love. Because how are you going to fully understand the degrees of love until you've lost? This adds to the greater evolution of God, of the fact that we're all going back to this harmonious energy, this oneness. And it's nothing to be afraid of, and it's nothing to polarize us or put us in this state of paralysis. It's actually something to help us learn, to help us grow. That this illusion is to send us back to the concept of free will so that we can enjoy this life while we do have it, so that we can treat strangers with kindness, so that we can forgive those who have cheated on us, so that we can forgive ourselves for all the shitty things we do to ourselves. In the Four Agreements, he talks about the fact that the degree we allow someone else to abuse us is the degree we allow ourselves to abuse ourselves. So it all starts with being able to set boundaries for yourselves and to not judge yourselves in that dualistic place of, oh my God, I'm such a piece of shit for smoking, drinking, eating, texting my ex, doing these terrible things for myself. Because that's going to cause the pendulum to swing the exact opposite way. You're going to go do great things for yourself, see change. But because it came from such a charged place, as soon as you do one bad thing for yourself, that conveyor belt door opens and you fall back in the rabbit hole, and that pendulum swings in the opposite direction. Mothers often unconsciously attract illness and disaster to their children by continuously holding them in thoughts of fear and watching for symptoms. This is the story of Hansel and Gretel. Ironically, this was something I can't give away too much detail, but let's say metaphorically this concept was something I experienced when someone in my family got sick. There was an overbearing response from the family, which caused that person to believe things that may have manifested a reality. This is still something I'm learning to decipher as this page grows, as my influence grows, as my wisdom grows. Hopefully I have an answer, and if I don't, it is what it is. I'm blessed to be here. I'm blessed to have this life. I'm blessed to love and have these people in my family. So I think regardless, that's something that I want to uncover a little deeper. I'm confident in that statement. But resistance is hell, for it places man in a state of torment. That's why I'm saying do not judge the shadow. It is an essential part of this experience. Learn to be okay with the fact that we're going to have bad days. Learn to be with the fact that some days we're going to need to be on the couch, that we're not going to be perfect. Have faith that everything's going to be okay. In this, we see the great law of transmutation found on non-resistance. Forgot to tell you, this chapter is all about the law of non-resistance. That's why we're talking about it. There's nothing to resist because it's already perfect. That's one thing that brings me a lot of peace, is not the fact that there isn't good and bad things, but the fact that whether it's good or it's bad, it is harmoniously contributing to my evolution. It's always in service of a better tomorrow for myself. I just have to remove the lens of illusion. Imagine you're wearing these lenses. These lenses causes me to see the world in an orange-reddish manner. As soon as I remove the illusion, I see it for what it is. Part of the illusion, and the final illusion we have to come over to some degree, is the duality of man. And shout out the person that commented on my YouTube video, brought this up, tree of knowledge, good and bad lead us back to free will. When we have free will, we move into the concept of the law of cause and effect, right? The 7 laws of the Kabbalion. And that law of cause and effect is the idea that the spiritual realm, the mental realm, is the causal plane, and the physical realm is the effect plane. So everything we're doing in our mind, everything we're feeling, all those thoughts we have that the world doesn't see is actually going to manifest itself in the effect plane, the physical world. That's why meditation is great, because you can learn to sit in a place of stillness, in a place of confidence, in a place of oneness, and you're not going to judge, because meditation is the ability to be detached, to be non-resistant to the thoughts that come. So as a man, if I go be like, this is a beautiful girl, hello, my name is Grant, nice to meet you, and she has a negative response, I'm non-resistant. If I go to the gym and I feel a little shitty, I can just overcome that with non-resistance and be like, hey, I'm here, make the best of what we do have. Just always find that positive wave to ride. Every man is a golden link in the chain of my good, for all men are God in manifestation, awaiting the opportunity given by man himself to serve the divine plan of his life. So not only do we have a divine plan for our lives, but we're the one thing that gets in the way of it, because we're on this golden linked chain of God. Like, we are all in the oneness of it. So back to that sacred numerology, we are all part of the one, so we are all part of that divine harmony. We're the only ones that create separation. Our individualized perception and our experience with the self is the thing that creates separation. But it's the thing that's going to teach us about the oneness, to remove those lenses of illusion. How long have we been doing this? 38 minutes? We're kind of cooking. I'm just going to start doing long chats, long talks, like mini podcasts. Eventually I'll bring some friends on. So I hope you guys like this. I'm a steady yapper, a certified yapper in Japanese, 3 life path, but this is what I love. So let's get back into it. Instead of saying divine ideas never conflict, the call will come at the right time, leaving it to infinite intelligence to arrange. I commenced to manage things myself. I made the battle mind not God's, and remained tense and anxious. This is why understanding the fact that the oneness is divine, that everything is actually serving you, and that your anxiousness in the present moment, you're playing this back and forth game of Pong, bing, 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 in your head. Over the span of a 10-minute period, you can have 100 negative thoughts. And you're like, oh my God, I'm spiraling. And then in 24 hours, it resolves itself. And you're like, holy fuck, I torture myself for no reason. For no reason. Pay attention to that pattern. Open up your time frame. Fill that space with more stillness, more love, more faith, and I promise everything's going to be okay. I cannot lose any call that belongs to me by divine right. I am under grace and not under law. What you seek is seeking you, and whatever is meant for you will find you. The inharmonious situation comes from some inharmony within man himself. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his path. Let me reread that again. When there is in him no emotional response to an inharmonious situation, it fades away forever from his path. This is what they talk about in infinite potential. If you do not have a charged response causing the pendulum to swing to an inharmonious event, it fades away from your perception. Because you are not impacted by it, your internal state does not change. You find peace, you remain in that steady nature, and you continue on the path of life. You continue to progress. You are not falling out of alignment or spiraling because an external event caused your internal peace of mind to change. Honestly, the only reason the external world fucks with us is because we've been so programmed to think that it's about the external world. When the biggest thing I'm learning is give me a pull-up bar, give me a sunset, give me the beach, and I'm chilling. I don't need this cool apartment. I don't need to be spending $4,000 a month to look like someone I'm not. It's not about that. It's about my ability to love myself, stay in shape, protect the temple, have good relationship, good conversation, do things I love. This is my job. I can sit here and just chat for 41 minutes. And we're going to keep it going. Jesus Christ said, "Behold, now is the accepted time. Now is the day of salvation. The robbers of time are the past and the future." The robbers of time are the past and the future. Man should bless the past and forget it, if it keeps him in bondage, and bless the future, knowing it has in store for him endless joys, but live fully in the now. That is beautiful. Bless the past. Make peace with your demons. Integrate the shadow. That all has to do with yesterday. Invert that fear and anxiety of living in the past into a place of faith. Know that tomorrow has so much in store for you, but also understand that tomorrow is not promised. So it's actually in your best interest to be here now, 10 toes down, doing the thing, living life. So I think we're going to close out the book club, the book bag right there. This was a little podcast, a little chat about the game of life and how to play it by Florence Scovel Shinn. If you like this book, I'll put a link in the bio. Go ahead, check it out. It is $10.99. Teaches you a lot about the fact that negativity and pessimism are going to be returned if you put those things out into the world, but by flipping by flipping the script in favor of positive attitudes and affirmations, we are able to manifest success and joy in everything we do. I'm wishing you the best. If you like these chats, drop a like, drop a subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.